In this video, we're going to be looking at graphing these absolute value functions. So I'm going to show you two different methods that you can use to graph. Doesn't matter which one you use, just use whichever clicks better in your head. The first method is to first identify the vertex, create a table of points to represent the function with the vertex in the middle row, and then step 3, graph the points. So let's go ahead and go through an example of using method 1. And I'll make a note up here. This is method 1. So my first step is I want to identify the vertex. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this so it looks more like my vertex form. So absolute value of x is the same thing as absolute value of x minus 0 minus 3. So that means that my vertex here is at 0, negative 3. So that's where my graph is going to start. It's going to be at 0, negative 3. Now I need to fill in the other points around it. So I'm going to choose 2 points below 0 and then above 0. So negative 1 and negative 2, 1 and 2. So I'm going to assign those for my x. To find the value of f of x at those points, I just need to plug in those values of x into my function. So I'm going to first start with negative 2. So when I plug that in for x, I have the absolute value of negative 2 minus 3. Well, the absolute value of negative 2 is just 2. And 2 minus 3, I get negative 1. Okay, let's do the same thing with negative 1. So now plugging in negative 1 into my function, I have the absolute value of negative 1 minus 3. Absolute value of negative 1 is just 1. And I get negative 2. Now plugging in 1, I get the absolute value of 1 minus 3, which ends up being negative 2. And f of 2, I get absolute value of 2 minus 3, which is equal to negative 1. So you may notice a pattern that occurred in my table here. I see that the points on either side of my vertex have the same f of x value, and then so on. And that's going to be because it's symmetric, so you'll see that pattern each time. That's a good way to check to see if you're doing the problem correctly. So I have those points, now I'm just going to go ahead and plot them. So I have negative 2, negative 1, negative 1, negative 2, 1, negative 2, and 2, negative 1. And then I can go ahead and draw my lines. And so I see I get this V-shaped graph. So that's the first method. The second method takes advantage of the fact that this graph is, or this function is symmetric, and uses that to find other points. So here my first step is again to still identify the vertex, but now I'm also going to identify the axis of symmetry. And remember, that is the line that goes through the x-coordinate of your vertex. Step 2, I'm going to find 2 other points to the left or right of the vertex. And in step 3, I'm going to reflect those points from step 2 across the axis of symmetry. Okay, so first I'm going to go ahead and find my vertex. I'm going to rewrite this into vertex form. So instead of +1, I'm really subtracting a negative 1 and adding 0 at the end. So that means that my vertex here is negative 1, 0. I can go ahead and plot that. And I'm going to go ahead and find 2 points to the right of my vertex. So I'm just going to add 1 to x, I get 0 and 1. And I'm going to plug those into my function to find my g of x values. So g of 0, I get negative 0 plus 1, which is negative absolute value of 1, which ends up being negative 1. Now when I plug 1 in, I get the negative absolute value of 1 plus 1. 1 plus 1 is 2, so I get negative 2. And so my axis of symmetry again, is through my vertex. Plotting these other points, I get 0, -1, 1, -2. And then now to get my points on the other side, I'm just going to reflect them across this axis of symmetry. And so reflecting this first purple point, I get this point right here. This next point is 2 away from the axis of symmetry, so I need to go 2 away in the opposite direction. And then I get my graph. Okay, let's look at 2 more examples. So I'm going to go ahead and use the first method here again. So here I see that my vertex is at 3, 2, so I'm going to put that in the middle. And I'm going to go ahead and plot that. And then now I need to go ahead and find my other 4 points. So I'm going to go to points less than x on the left-hand side, and then on the right-hand side of the vertex. So this is going to be 2 and 1, 4 and 5. So plugging in 1 first, I get 1, absolute value of 1 minus 3 plus 2, absolute value of -2 plus 2. Well, the absolute value of -2 is just 2. And so I get 4. Okay, plugging in 2 now, I get the absolute value of 2 minus 3 plus 2. Absolute value of -1 plus 2. Absolute value of -1 is just +1. And so here I get 3. Plugging in 4, I also get 3. And then now plugging in 5, I see that I get 4. And so I see that same pattern arise, and that's what we are looking for to make sure that we're doing this right. And now I'm going to go ahead and plot those points. So I have 1, and I'm going up 4, 2, 3, 4, 3, and 5, 4. Okay, let's do one last one. So here I'm going to use method 2 again. So first, looking to see what my vertex is, I see this is actually going to be at 1, 3. So I'm going to plot that point. And now I'm going to find 2 points on the right side of the vertex. You could go left, I just like always going to the right. So that means my x values are going to be 2 and 3. So I'm going to first plug in 2. And I get -2 times absolute value of 2 minus 1 plus 3. 2 minus 1, I get 1. -2 times 1, I get -2. -2 plus 3, I get 1. And then now plugging in 3, I get -2 times absolute value of 3 minus 1 plus 3. 3 minus 1, I get 2. -2 times 2, I get -4. -4 plus 3, I get -1. So I have my vertex. I'm going to go ahead and draw my axis of symmetry here because that's what I'm going to be reflecting across. Remember, the axis of symmetry goes through your vertex. Plotting these 2 points, I have 2, 1, and 3, -1. And now I'm going to go ahead and reflect those points. So I'm going to go to my 2, 1, reflecting that across the x-axis. I see it's 1 away from the x-axis, so I need to go 1 away on the other side. Reflecting 3, -1, I'm 2 away from my axis of symmetry, so I'm going to go 2 away on the other side, and I get that point. And now I can go ahead and draw my graph in.